Welcome to Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. My name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. Our objective is to enthuse, inspire, energize, and empower entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of all stripes here in BW and beyond. We do so by inviting these entrepreneurs into our makeshift studio. Sometimes we call them to the restaurant, sometimes we go to our studio, and we ask them to share their experiential knowledge, their experiences and their expertise, and we ask them as many questions as we can, aimed at empowering you also as a viewer. Hello dear viewer, dear listener, my name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. I take this opportunity to welcome you once again to another exciting and intellectually stimulating episode of Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. I brought Marona, senior intellectual in the community, who's also very much interested in entrepreneurship. Memma Onalenna Selolwane. She is my guest today, but I will give her the opportunity to fully introduce herself. Welcome to the studio, Memma Selolwane.
Thank you so much, Ramahobi. Thank you very, very much. Excuse my twitching, problem with my nerves here.
Yes.
I'm glad to be here.
Yes. Give us your background. Tell us about your condensed version of your story.
Yeah, essentially, I'm a mother of one by birth, and then of an additional 4 kids that my late sister left for me.
These are the ones you adopted?
Yes. When they were little, and they are mine in everything except Laura. I didn't have labor pains.
Yes.
Bringing them into the world. So that's me as a mother, a single parent, and professionally, I had an ambition as a kid to reach the highest level of education. In those days, I had no idea what it was, but wherever it finished, I would go there. And yes, I did. I did my bachelor's degree at the University of Botswana. Very glad that I did my first degree at home. It grounds you.
I suspect it was UBLS then.
I went through the 3 phases. We were University of Botswana, Lesotho and Swaziland, and then University of Botswana and Swaziland, and then University of Botswana.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was the degree on?
My degree, I was a very greedy learner. Is something exciting, despite what the rules actually said. I went to classes, but my degree, my majors were in sociology and history.
Okay.
But I attended economics classes, I attended political science classes. The only things I couldn't fit were biology classes.
And tell me, how far did you go with your learning?
I then, after a break of 3 years teaching in a secondary school, I was then recruited by the university as a staff development fellow, then went to do my master's in development studies. I needed to delve more into economics, which I hadn't really done much of at university. I've always been interested in issues of development, how you develop a country and develop people. And so I did a 2-year master's degree at the University of Sussex in Brighton. And then I went on to do a PhD at the University of East Anglia, also in the School of Development Studies. Getting into more exciting things like biotechnology. I wanted to find out what the scientists were doing in the field of biotechnology and its potential impact in advancing people's development, particularly agriculture in the context of Botswana and Africa.
Okay.
I have always been a greedy learner.
Okay. Let's talk about your practical experience in terms of work experience.
I started teaching at the University of Botswana as a staff development fellow, 1981. And I retired from that job 2012.
Oh.
Yeah, with an ambition. My drive was that I was going to make sure Botswana graduate from Mobosha to seriously decent and affordable accommodation.
How did housing become your main area of interest? Because we're going to talk about, you know, the whole issue of affordable housing and how we can attain it. How did you gravitate towards that area?
Towards that? You know, my background in sociology means, you know, we pick a lot of areas that affect the human social condition. But navigating towards housing, in a passion of mine, was informed by, I tried to build my own house, Kopakalani. And I was cheated left, right, and center because I made certain assumptions about the profession, that people in there will want to build houses and develop and complete on time. I didn't know that they were also very happy, but when you have unlimited resources. My housing project almost came to zero because the materials left as fast as I put them on site. And so I said, now, if I can be fooled, cheated with a whole PhD and international experience behind me, and I'm cheated by people, some of whom don't even have a university degree. What about the rank and file? If they can cheat me blind and I have my eyes open, how many people are suffering as a result of ignorance about the built environment? And so I said, now look, I can't get back the money that I lost, but I can certainly play a role in helping people appreciate what goes into housing and how to minimize costs and optimize outcomes. Also very naive, because I had never learned anything about what the built environment professionally, what it meant. But that was the thing. It has been a very long journey of learning and making big mistakes and losing an awful amount of money in the process. But I eventually have a house in Pakalani, and the bits and pieces of property as in land, and it still drives me, despite my numerous failure and losing money. It is the passion that drives me, that every Motswana deserves to have a decent home, an affordable house, and that we have so much potential to deliver on that score.
Yeah, the second point of discussion that I want us to dwell on relates to the dependency syndrome and how we can graduate as a people from the dependency syndrome. But I think for us to talk about that, we need first to identify it and to understand what it is. Can you define the problem for us?
Okay. You were like Diana when we gained independence. I was 10 years old. Old.
I was a year old or something, yeah.
So it was understandable that when we headed towards independence, our leaders were very conscious of the fact that most people were from rural areas, predominantly rural, and that we had had a colonial past where outsiders had basically been able to create wealth for themselves, not just in Botswana, but throughout the continent. And there was that passion that while Botswana were not maybe world-wise in terms of creating modern wealth, the government would step in initially to drive the process of ensuring that wealth created in Botswana would be in the hands of government, and government would redistribute while building people's capacity, in fact, to participate.
Yes.
So from the word go, there had been that commitment on the part of government,
which is
that
a laudable goal.
until the people are ready. I get it.
Yes.
But I think the success story at Dependancy has made our government to feel that even after five and a half decades, they still want to drive, they still want to do things for people. And but there is that success story I
like you choosing the word graduating, because by implication you are saying the government is treating us as if we're still at school. We're not being given an opportunity to now graduate.
We are not wanting to graduate.
Oh, we're not wanting to graduate.
I don't think it's for, government still has a knee-jerk reaction. How the problem is government wants to do. And later now we have learned, let's make demands on government to do on our behalf. And the result is that there was a time when government could legitimately do that with success, in the sense of building infrastructure, in the sense of making sure Botswana, we go to school, we get an education. But for heaven's sake, you bring a child up to a certain level and they have to learn to walk and run. And Botswana, whether that's any more businessing, business, but they still want government handouts. And so until Botswana graduate from that dependency syndrome, this country isn't going anywhere in terms of moving to the next level of development. The kind of development that ensures that Botswana as individuals actually get to have the middle income status ya matshelo a bone. So our country is an upper middle income economy.
Yeah.
The people are predominantly low income.
Yeah, but what practical steps can you and I, because it starts with an individual, you and I do to achieve that graduation from dependency to,
your forum is one of those, Mogobe, and then we need to kindle a lot of those forums. Wake up. It's time to graduate, not to wait for government take over. No. After 55 years of independence, Mogobe, surely but people are still expecting government to be giving us handouts.
Yes, but let's shift from complaining to acting.
Doing.
What is it that needs to be done?
I don't have answers to every problem that we have, Mogobe. But the areas where I am most passionate about as an individual are education, housing.
Those two.
Yeah. And agriculture. Like I said, like agriculture, I'm a gardener. An amateur gardener. For me, those three areas hold a future where individuals and the business sector in particular can make an impact without asking for permission from government. We have so many university graduates. We have so many businessmen and women who are making a decent amount of money.
Yes.
Can we put our heads together to ensure that we have better skills? Because we have a lot of educated people with no
funds.
Skills.
Yeah.
With no skills that can drive the economy.
Okay. All right. The vision of Africa, you're involved in the Vision for Africa 2063.
Yeah, I was.
Perhaps you need to educate the viewer about your involvement there, and then let's also explain what that vision is.
A lot of African countries gained independence in the 1960s. Babangwe as early as the late 1950s. But the bulk, a good number of graduates happened in the 1960s. And so a forum was created. Then we built the African Union.
Yeah, it was Before that, it was OAU. And then
And the idea was that those that gained independence would fight and help others to gain independence so the continent would be free.
yes.
Yeah, and every time go nna le some intervention e leng gore rona as Africans what we can do, go nna le counter initiative from those with money. You know, we are the most segmented continent in the world.
Yes.
And so many tiny little
54,
batho ba
54
Modimo.
countries.
Yeah. Now getting those people together, disagree. Mehela irile ha re se re simolla go celebrate the 50th anniversary of most African countries. Since the AU was formed, the OAU formed in
Around 63.
63. So ha re se ra goela 50 years. Ebe re re, okay, what have we achieved as Africans? How can we make sure that the next 50 years of independence brings tangible social upliftment for the people of the citizens of this continent? So an organization, a Pan-African organization of social scientists that I belong to, which is headquartered in Dakar, Senegal. I was in the executive committee at the time. Yeah, we already have this network of Africa's intellectuals.
Yes.
What can we contribute in terms of envisioning what we want the continent to look like in another 50 years, so that when we celebrate the 100th year of independence for Africa, we can look around and say now, the average African citizen has enjoyed being independent. Because you can see from the lifestyles, you can see from the level of happiness, you can see from the kind of governments that we elect, that the continent's people are finally here. They have arrived.
Is this to say you want to shift from mere, political independence to economic
to economic
independence
and environmental and, the good life
yes.
for the average citizen. So I was involved in a number of think tanks, and at the time when we started, people looked at Botswana, but hey, we at least have, we may be failing in many, but we have one success story called Botswana, which has pulled itself from rags to riches. Can we use that as a role model? It's not impossible.
Was the idea to replicate many Botswanas?
It was to replicate and better the Netlania Botswana. And so conversations around the continent, an input in terms of the kind of African citizenry that would be required to make Africans feel proud of being Africans. So I was involved in a number of those think tanks.
So what was the result? What actually came out of that?
The result was that we assisted the African Union to develop a plan, a 50-year plan. And within the 50 years, what must the first 10 years look like? If this continent is going to develop, of course, education has to be priority number one. How do we educate our people so that we have skills, we have technological capacity, etc., etc. But we also need infrastructure. It's not going to happen when Botswana is looking only at tiny little hamlet called Botswana and Zimbabwe in it. Maybe you can't build a railway past me. We have to have connectivity from Cape to Cairo and from the Atlantic Ocean to the Indian Ocean. That was the vision. When you lay that foundation, other things can come. Solve the problems. So one of my contributions through NEPAD's request was to say, now, Doc, educationally, how far has the continent gone? Where are we at? We've developed a lot of universities, but do we have skills?
We certainly have a lot of masters, and PhDs.
Yeah, but in terms of the continent, the whole population, now that particular assignment, Mogobe, it left me thoroughly depressed. You can imagine I have been teaching at university since I was 26, and with classrooms overflowing of students, and knowing that Botswana was a late comer in the area of educational development, I assume that when Botswana's classrooms were overflowing, the continent, the continent of huge populations, we have so many educated Africans.
So why were you depressed?
I was depressed because of the number of African countries where more than 75% of people over the age of 20 had never set foot inside a classroom. So many years after independence, the sheer number of African countries where hella just going to school, forget about university, just stepping into a classroom and learning has never happened for the majority. Then you understand why we have so many dictators. Because so very few actually venture into technical colleges, into post-secondary school, because they haven't even been to primary school. Botswana is Southern Africa, and Botswana then shines. In a continent which hasn't educated its people, Botswana shines, even though Botswana itself has fundamental problems.
Is this because in most of the continent there's very little being allocated in terms of the budget, the national budget, to education?
That is certainly, because when you compare Botswana, you'd have to compare the globe rather than the continent in terms of the amount of national resources allocated to education and health, the social sector. The last time I assessed, we were not even among the first 5%. No, we were among the top 5 countries in the world where the budget for education and health was large. We belong to the top 5.
And I suspect it's still the case today.
I suspect it's still the case, but remember that other countries, by Longori, try to learn from Botswana, have shot far ahead. Rwanda, despite years of genocide and civil war,
they've passed us. They've left us in the dust.
So that is why I was depressed after so many years and so much money. And you look at the United Nations programs, it's a development, from the first development decade, the 1960s. Where's the money that UNESCO and UNDP and all the, where has it gone to have failed the people of Africa so fundamentally? So fundamentally. And yet you look at the wealth that leaves the continent, Mogobe, it's mind-boggling. I looked at the fact that, when you take the 10 mineral-rich countries, including Botswana, in the continent, their wealth alone from those minerals is 10 times the amount of money that the Western world puts into the whole continent from Cape to Cairo. 10 times.
Wow.
If that amount of
mean
wealth...
as investment or as donor money?
The money that leaves the continent. We create so much wealth that when you take these 10 mineral-rich countries, the wealth that is generated in their mines is 10 times the size, the volume of money that comes in through foreign aid and direct foreign investment.
FDI.
It's halal rule.
All right, let's talk solutions now. Specifically Botswana, we are now considered a rich upper medium economy, but we have very poor people. And I suppose you can go back to the subject of housing as well, in terms of explaining this phenomenon. A rich, a very rich country in terms of a rich government, but very, very poor people.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to look at the latest. We've been basking on the fact that Botswana exceptionality, what have you. But at the end of the day, the poor Botswana do not eat the exceptionality of their country.
You cannot take that to the bank.
No. When you look at that, the latest governance report, and it was basically looking at governments and how they have managed economies, and they have managed particularly economies, environments, etc., etc. The latest report in a refer 7 major indicators, categories of indicators. Do we have leadership with foresight? Do we have robust laws and policies that facilitate? Do we have strong institutions? Do we have good financial stewardship? Do we have an attractive marketplace? And do we have any influence on global issues? And also in terms of our reputation as a country.
What were the findings?
What has been the impact on people in helping people
to go up,
to be uplifted? Out of those 7, repasitse barely passed, mediocre passes in terms of leadership and foresight, right? And that is because when it comes to anti-corruption, when it comes to a long-term vision, when it comes to a strategic prioritization and innovation, we are not doing exceptionally badly. At least rapasa. Ane go school on kabekeri rezabo 50% and then go financial stewardship. That is where Botswana stands high and shoulders above.
Head and shoulders above the rest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Incidentally, who was putting together that research?
This was an institute, Ibidua, the Chandler Institute is at Singapore. Yeah. It's based in the Far East. I think Chandler was an American.
Maybe.
Set up an institute there. So out of those 7, our laws, we are not doing very well in terms of the kind of laws and policies that generate real development that leads to people's upliftment. Makuwa, as in the government hasn't done a pretty great job there.
How are we doing on your area of interest, which is housing?
Ma?
How are we doing in your area of interest, which is housing?
But by African standards,
Sure, yes. Self-help
that
housing agency.
But you know, in the 1970s, well, this was a poor country. This is the best we could do for our country. But we need to graduate from the kind of residences that we find in our Sha areas, which account for more than 60% of the population of Gaborone, if it hasn't risen. We've created Shas in the neighboring villages. So we are not doing very well there. But the questions that we must be asking ourselves, yes, government has done the best any government could do. Given the citizens are still not, when we are supposed to demand accountability of government and of ourselves, in Nigeria, government must do this and never, what must we be doing? Ourselves. We've built beautiful malls, our commercial centers, and our industrial centers, our offices. We've done pretty well with Madi Ababereki.
Pension fund money?
The pension fund money. The pension fund money are what are in all these nice commercial centers is because the pension. Babereki ba puso. The largest sector in the pensions industry, 70% or 75%, followed by Botswana. Normally you need a couple of those, and then Botswana pension fund, the MVA, 2 institutions. Malls happen. One. So,
which is a positive development, right?
It is a very, very positive development because in the sense of giving us a built environment that is properly maintained. The government departments are quitting the government enclave where they have not done a good job of maintaining those buildings. But then where they're supposed to be business, you now have, you have neighbors. How many government departments in just the center? And the police you need, because you always need the police around
we have
you.
a lot of
But Babangwe should not be here at all. But they want nice offices too, which are better maintained. The private sector sets standards in terms of what you do once you build a house.
Yes.
That you must maintain it.
Correct.
For it to retain. So they've set standards that have not quite permeated into your government enclave. But the government enclave is very happy to have offices in nice.
Although I heard
nice
that last
places.
year they stopped the policy or they've frozen it for some reason.
Well, I hope so, because I think that is a serious cough up of gentlemen and women who like nice offices but do not want to utilize government resources optimally.
Yes, for
to
the
ensure
benefit
that
of
for
the,
yeah,
of the community.
Yeah. Because there was no need for them to rush. They just wanted nice offices. And yeah, somebody benefits. Mogobe, I'm sure, yeah, you benefit from other people's lack of foresight. Yeah, but the same funds, these nice offices and nice malls, have not given us adequate housing for the very pensioners. So that we have moved ahead in terms of quality malls and commercial centers, offices, but the pensioners themselves do not really seriously
have a thought as you're saying that as someone who's researched worldwide and extensively, is there an ideal in terms of a country or economy that you say?
Take Morocco. Canada, we've never really had proper slums, right? Botswana, Nairobi, what North Africa used to be 15 years ago. Morocco, the government of Morocco woke up we cannot have nice palaces and slums. They went on a 10-year development plan. We are going to cut our slums, and they were serious slums. If you've been to the slums in Nairobi, you will understand how to slum. You must be joking. You call these slums, these nice houses, by African standards.
Well, old Naledi was developed.
Yeah. So Morocco gave itself 10 years. We are going to cut the number of slums and house the slum dwellers. But there are nice apartments. So I last looked at it when I was doing the National Sustainable Framework for Botswana. Where can we borrow in terms of lessons?
China has also done well in taking people out of their poverty.
China has done well. China has done well in terms of education. China decided, you know what? We are going to send our people with a very clear strategy. The engineers, big
STEM,
people who would come and push the economy. And they sent people to all the major centers of the world in the West. Of course, some never came back. But the Chinese model, because you know what? When you only have a bowl of rice, you can decide to be absolutely equitable and give your children 3 grains of rice each. Or you can say, hey, Baba Ngo will be semi-starved. And I learned, my son is called Lerumo. I learned Hori.
He's appeared on this show before, by the way. He's done a good job.
Thank you. Yeah, as a mother, glowing.
Yes,
I've learned a lot from my son. I'm a student of his. So what China did was, we have to sacrifice. Bright. The Chinese word ya lerang is Chu Yen.
Chu Yen.
Yeah, we're going to identify Quyens and we are going to give them the best resources. Let them go, let them come back with skills and let us.
They will lift the rest.
They will lift the country. And the Chinese educational system, districts, where there should be national universities that serve the nation. There should be regional ones. They focus on the needs of what does Katleng need to advance? And so what are the skills that have to be developed in Katleng?
A skeptic might say the examples we are giving as ideal, Morocco and China, are not democracies.
Yes, I was
one
going to come to that.
One is a kingdom and the other one is a communist state.
I was going to come to that.
Yes,
sometimes countries they and remember when you talk about Morocco, the whole of North Africa, in the 1960s, North Africa was worse than most sub-Saharan Africa in terms of education. So yes, because there was a king there. You can say the same Rwanda, the dictator yaring. This is where now when we look at Botswana, you should say, in the context, unless we want to give up our democracy, which I don't think
nobody wants to give that up.
In the context of a democracy, how can we get people rather than the state to drive the agenda? Mogobe, you are in the built environment. You are a property developer among your many achievements.
Thank you.
But how many Botswana do you have maintaining your building? Who has the skills to maintain everything in here? I bet for most of us, our companies in critical positions, Zimbabwe, because they have the skills and they have the attitude. I must make sure I deliver, otherwise
by any means necessary.
Exactly. So, and then my son asked me to set up a company for him that would do maintenance. And naively, I thought, because we have so many technical colleges and what have you, the graduates of those days, everything to do with the built environment. Only to find that, no, our plumbers know how to fit bathrooms and toilets. They don't know how appliances like your washing machines, because nobody has taught them. I had to teach things about plumbing that I had never studied, but then given the internet, the plumbers, you know what, guys, you at least went to school to do plumbing. I didn't. You have certificates and diplomas. But now I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher basically by inclination, and I'm a teacher because I have an abiding interest in learning. So we are going to combine your knowledge and mine so that you learn how to do appliances. So initially, I just found the polytechnic. First slotting, I have plumbers and electricians here, but we don't offer those things. Maintenance of appliances, no, we don't.
So you had to resort to the internet.
But no, I had to resort to the internet. You are always enterprising in that sense.
All right.
Yeah. So this is where I'm saying, what is to stop Mogobe? Can we actually bring engineers and them to contribute towards ensuring Botswana ba se tseng ba hitile ka di polytechnic ka di eng?
Yeah, but I'm going to ask you as a scholar to comment on this. I go back to the issue of these economies not being democracies, and there's a sense in which a government needs to benevolently dictate and get things done. Don't you think we need some form of benevolent dictatorship to push these things through?
I think, Rona, as a country, we've gone past that stage. We've graduated from benevolent government. I'd flag my thing to the private sector has been given to no.
An opportunity.
Yeah. Remember 1999, after the private sector had cried tears, where government is stifling us, government is everywhere, BDC, give us some space. And the government decided, you know what? If I privatize the pensions, the civil, surely there should be money, available out there in the private sector. Let the Lerumo how to do things better. And 2000, Kihamadi Ayakai, Botswana Public Officers Pension Fund. It sparked two major industry growth, phenomenal growth.
In terms of?
Just the growth of the pension fund industry, the growth of the financial sector, particularly banking. Take any year, the government budget. It's exactly the same amount as what is in the hands of the pensions industry. Exactly the same amount that is in the banks. So take bank money, take a thing, it's bigger than twice the size of government. So what are we waiting for?
It's a good question.
What are we waiting for? It means, yeah, we have a weak financial sector in the sense that these are retailers. They are not.
Because now they are even moving away from lending for interest generation. They are more interested in making money through activity, through charging individuals.
Yeah.
So there's a shift. They are not even investing that much in property.
In property, But look also at the pensions industry. They are lending into things that they can control, understandably. But that has also created so much room for corruption. Yeah, no, that is a monster that is going to be so difficult to control. But the only way you can control it is when the private sector realizes how very, very important it is to have institutions and laws that provide a leveling ground so that those who merit succeed.
Merit-based.
Yes. Because how long the bribes really, how many of us can afford to be paying bribes left, right, and center? We can't.
Let me ask you, based on your experience, about the practical capability of this private sector to really uplift the economy.
Now I start from the point of view they now have, the private sector in the form of the pensions industry, in the form of the banking sector, they now control the bulk of the funds, the financial resources. You are in the built environment, I have the passion. I'm still learning the world of business. And my son tells me, don't downgrade yourself. There is nothing to business that your background as an academic you cannot use. It's an issue of understanding how these things operate. That is why I have fallen in love with this guy, Robert Kiyosaki.
Well, let's see that book. This is Robert Kiyosaki.
Kiyosaki, yeah.
Here he talks about the second change.
Exactly, the second chance.
Oh, second chance. Chance.
Yeah, you have failed before, but you still have a chance. But you cannot succeed if you do not understand the world of finance. Not in how the banks would want you to understand it, because they have a vested interest in your ignorance. You have to understand how finance and money works, not from an economist point of view, because they like these figures, but mathematics, as if you can reduce the world to arithmetic, F and X and whatever. Learn about money and finance. Once you understand the issue, certain things cost, but do they cost in a manner that generates higher income than the cost? So your house is not necessarily
An asset.
An asset. If it's eating into you and bringing nothing, it's a liability. So we pour money into housing, the assets, and then it doesn't generate anything. But here is where, in fact, the housing sector, utilizing the resources, it means you and I, Mogobe, we have to talk to I get it's mostly gentlemen who are CEOs of banks. We must have a very frank conversation with them. Open up. As long as the low-hanging fruit, you are going to retire, because we all have to retire.
Some of them have retired.
You are going to retire into poverty. Because once you are now reliant on pension, that's when you will see how unequal our economy is.
So if you were to talk to Rebohati,
we will be saying,
Rebohati,
please, now I want people who just help me solve problems. I don't want to hear about, you must tick this box and tick that box. And let's think outside the box. What can we do? Yeah. We need to facilitate.
Is that message getting through, or it's not?
No, I talked to my own banker. And then I didn't want to put too much pressure on him consistently when there were so many other things that I didn't understand about the built environment. That is why I need a person like you who is invested in the built environment to say, now, how do we turn around? For me, the passion is we can develop our shares without taking the land from their owners. Because I have spent the last 10 years and seen the potential in terms of space. Because about this thing, would develop.
Your bank is which one? Bank abroad. FNB, okay, yeah. This one, yes.
Oh, Ghana is right here.
Yeah.
Orientation. They got excited, oh, Selolwane, but where is your title deed? No, I have no intention of taking title from people. I want them to come as communities, because there are examples in Europe where a community comes together and forms a corporate for that area, by investor in developing their area. And that would mean that they have housing,
yes.
If you think multi-stories,
yes,
you are looking at the possibility probably some of them commuter from Moditsane, from Molepolole,
they'll be housed there.
Could actually be housed here at affordable rates.
Yes.
It's an issue of putting people together who matter and saying, if Morocco, the Moroccan government can do that with a dictatorial type of government,
yeah,
we can do it
kingdom
through kingdom dictator. You know, let's not read it. We can do it by just appealing to the self-interest of those who want to make money. You know how you built this, Remohobe.
Yes.
We can do it the same with Bosha.
Yeah. I want us to revisit the question of leadership and the question of foresight from a government perspective, because it ties in with that report. Because John Maxwell says that everything sinks or swims on the basis of leadership. On the
basis of leadership and foresight.
Yes, so I want you to speak a little bit more to
this
that.
Report, we fail abysmally when it comes within the leadership and foresight category. We are not adaptable. 10-year development plan, and repeatedly, we just churn out a 5-year development plan. After 5-year development plan, we did it last 5 years ago, we're going to do it.
Although the environment has changed.
The environment has changed. The circumstances have changed. In 1965, when the transitional plan was first, hey, things were terrible. You had so very few Botswana who'd been to university, who'd been to secondary school. We now have young people literally roaming the streets, security degree journey. Yeah, the degree might not be particularly exciting, but it has provided a framework of mind that can be retooled to become adaptable, to become more positive. It's not a lost cause.
And when you talk leadership, you're not just talking politicians.
No, I'm talking leadership. Leadership, yonama politique, was we have a very, very tame private sector. Private sector in particular. Minister but not call that minister, no, please do something radical. Or let's do something radical, government will catch up with us. Because you don't have to go and ask for ipelecheng funds. The financial institutions with the industry. You know, I have this brilliant idea. Let me another example that was set by Warwick Company. You know, Warwick Construction almost sunk.
Tell me about
that.
But
they rose like a phoenix by coming up with a brilliant idea that everybody has copied. There is ample land across Gaborone. Yeah? People are desperate for office space. Big private companies, Habana spaces is decent. Let's talk to the owners of land who are sitting on this prime land doing nothing. And we talk to Batwai.
I'm one of the people who benefited from that. Because they came with a new model where they said, let's build, but let's build and develop together, where you pay them in installments over a period of even 12 months or 24 months, depending on the project.
So Warwick was practically finished. They gambled, you remember, property, and then the Chinese came and undercut. Yeah, that was. But they rose from
like a phoenix from the ashes.
From the ashes. Yes. So we have models. We don't even have to go far to build on good models. This is in the existence of Botswana. To say now, look, imagine how much maintenance work can be done by improving housing in Botswana. Even these nice malls sitting in Itlang. You know, I interviewed two companies here. This thing, the built environment and the potential to bring in new players into the playing field.
Yes.
And then I realized, Bowariki have has set this pace by joining Lemaroma to bring, and then everybody is now copying. Even some of the workers about railway park, railway park.
They would argue
exactly, which is a good thing. But you must learn and improve. You must learn and improve. You can't just be copying Mogobe. How can I take that and make it better? Because Mogobe was a pathfinder, right? Obviously with certain limitations. Now that can island like
Let's talk about still, you gave the Warwick example, the issue of adaptability in the private sector. What more? Take advantage of this platform, Memma Selolwane. What more should the private sector be doing?
Let me go to my two favorite topics. I would like the private sector, everybody who owns property, right, who are in the built environment, everybody who is a manager of pension funds and health policies and what have you, and everybody who is a CEO of a bank. I would like for us to start having conversations about how we can pull together something that will facilitate two things: the production of skilled human resources in Botswana. We have people who are schooled, but everybody knows that our people do not have the skills that are required to maintain the built environment, to actually ensure that we have engineering and innovation happening. We don't do that by firstly building nice the gut
innovation
instinct,
hub.
the gut instinct do
build.
the easiest thing, build. You know, it's like udira a coffin, right? Obori he Mogobe is too big for this coffin. Let's chop him up and make him fit the coffin. When the coffin should be built around the body, Mogobe. I'm not wishing you dead.
No, of course.
but let us have people innovating around people. And the solutions, that for me, solutions are so easy. You get, instead of having our architects in nice offices, how to do these nice buildings, why don't they talk to people, vision, but let's hear what the residents of this particular area think about the kind of dwelling they would like as a collective. We
I think
know.
You're asking for the, basically a shift for the professionals to go to the grassroots.
Or, Mogobe, I think you and I can ignite something. Why don't we challenge these guys and say now, Renali Indaba, we hold it in a place, we will need architects, Baba Akanya. How do we transform? Another one that I've spent most time with, that area, that side of Maruapula. Along the road to Pakalani from University. This is the place I used to transverse. Jesus.
Is that Broadhurst?
Yeah, the Broadhurst Farms.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
that area, the oldest of Shahs.
Yes.
You know what? If you have a thinking person who controls finances, somebody who knows how to design, and labor, because baba cement the PPC, we can get guys like that to say, now look, can we inspire our architects? Do you know Botswana have a culture? That culture, we gather.
Yes.
But why do we have homes where there is no gathering space? Even with social distancing, we could
COVID
actually
hasn't
have.
helped.
Yeah. But, can you imagine an architect, I'm going to infuse a Setswana culture into the neighborhoods so that when we build a neighborhood.
There should be a gathering place.
There should be a place
sort
where
of like
people
a
can gather. Yeah. And so can we think architecturally of how we embody our Setswana culture into the development? Contest competition, who will provide us the thing that speaks to Batobao?
Yes.
Who else can bring in? It has to be an investment thing. It cannot be charity, because charity, you are going back to that mentality.
Yeah,
there have to be some sacrifices.
Entitlement mentality.
Yeah. I believe we can
syndrome.
do it.
Yeah,
we can take the model Morocco, but turn it on its head. We are a democracy, and that means that we are democratizing the space. How to develop the built environment with the people who are concerned also contributing to how architects give us structure.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. I don't want to leave our conversation without talking about A.F.T.C.A, because that's where we started on the vision thing. And now we have this Africa Continental Trade Area Agreement, which everybody talks about. What are your views on it, and how do we apply it here in Botswana? I know that we still have not ratified. When I had the negotiator here, Mr. Butale, he said we hadn't ratified, but he said we are ratifying around June, which is about now. What are your views on it?
Now my views are like, and these are informed by the work I've done on how we can get the continent. So that trade towards building an Africa that is united and it's open to the citizens.
Yes.
Free trade.
They want to eliminate tariffs and so on.
People and goods must be able to move freely
Yes.
in our continent. So it is part of that vision, Africa. And I welcome it essentially because our major obstacles have been, hey, we love our national borders. Why wanna? We duplicate things, we could be utilizing economies of scale to achieve for the benefit of the entire continent. Starting with Southern and Eastern Africa, for instance, in Central Africa, hardly. It is a welcome development. It is going to get caught up in this entanglement. If we leave it to the governments
to implement,
it's not going anywhere. Our governments have not been good. They like doing things for their people, even things that they don't have the competency to do. We fail when it comes to, but are people with the government? Why one? And so this is another area where the private sector should be talking across the borders, not hella locally, to say how do we, who should I be looking at on that side of the border and the border below in terms of building, breaking. When people see, this is how our policies, our national policies are hindering us. They should be able to set examples of what can be achieved by the private sector. Yeah, matata private sector. Mama hasinga mangwe ko le gore government ga lema ope. Ba itse gore if you don't do it, it won't happen. The private sector. Rona re tletse go atlhama re go jesa.
But on the housing side,
so I never ba ileng gore ba netla gore what do we need to make that the trade actually happen?
Yes.
People are already taking initiatives around the borders.
In the sense that?
In the sense that if you go to Zambia, Obolibela is border with Zimbabwe, is border with you find roaring trade there in millions of US dollars. There was a lady on Antare, hey, Selolwane, if you could look at our side, Kahali, Ulibella, how much ordinary uneducated people, but they are not waiting for governments to give them the go ahead.
They're engaged
Rona
in trade.
always are a policy guy. Hey, initiate, ignite, go. Come.
If later, you catch up.
So it gives us an opportunity. But if people are waiting for governments to ratify things without showing governments what they can achieve, Bona, I don't see it being other than a nice little ratified policy.
All right, I want us to talk about sort of a concluding message, so to give this whole message on housing, a positive
education.
spin, housing and education. Give it a positive spin. For us, what do you think we can do as Botswana, and how do you see it going forward? You could also talk in terms of your own crystal ball. By that I mean how you see things 5 to 10 years from now in terms of what you are trying to achieve.
Yeah, housing and education very much interlinked. The population of Botswana is growing. The population, the urbanized population, is growing even faster. And so people need housing like yesterday. And there is so much opportunity to transform our urban spaces with a hit, with adding value to rural areas. because I'm worried that housing, the way those authorities that are responsible for housing are looking at things, get more and more land put under housing. But where are we going to eat? Who is going to produce the food if the lands are being converted into housing? When we have an opportunity to actually densify the area that we have already put a footprint in on. You know, when I was a kid,
nice, yeah.
this is where we had right here. My son lives just across here. You won't find Mupenwing.
So what do you want us to do?
What I would like is for us to say, let us rethink how the city of Gaborone, we can transform it to ensure that there isn't a single quarter in Gaborone which does not have decent housing for all. So that babereki ba Gaborone ababereke mono, because affordable housing. It should be affordable to students, to low-income earners. That means that we also have to invest in an education that will fast-track. We must fast-track the production of your maintenance guys. Your architects, you know, they need a bit of retooling in terms of the kind of sustainable housing. It is possible because it's not a matter of shortage of money, it's an issue of shortage of the will. And we are not talking government will here. We can actually ignore the government for now and say, let's do it. Let us do it. Let us take a risk and transform.
Okay.
I think in 10 years, now is my belief that it would take about 10 years for all the shahs in Gaborone to have been transformed into very, very decent homes.
Do you mind if I ambush you a little bit to share on your own project, which I'm aware of in Jwaneng?
In Sese.
In Sese. What are you doing there to transform the community of Sese?
The motivation here, that one, was that, unfortunately, you know, being a city girl, when I thought of solving the problems that Sese and Jwaneng, you know, I don't know why the Botswana Jwaneng thought that it would never grow population-wise. And they didn't think of incorporating the villages around in any systematic way. So the village of Sese is smelling distance from Jwaneng. So bakona go utlwa go apeilwe dijo tsa dianyanse a ke re ke tsone se go ting dichu bona ba bolawa ke tlalaga.
Yes.
You know gore Jwaneng ke yone e producing the greatest amount of value a ke re ya ditemane.
Yes.
So Jwaneng is here. It has the highest per capita income than anywhere else in Botswana.
Yes.
And literally across the fence is one of
the
poorest areas in Botswana. And every area outside Jwaneng is decently poor.
Yes.
So how do we bring the Anyanse kwano? Housing for me solves the problem, housing of those mine workers.
So what are you doing specifically?
So we are going to start building affordable. We interviewed the workers, you know, what kind of housing would you like? They told us what they didn't like. They are forced to share the room because because with the mine work, you don't know whether you'll still be employed next month.
It's unpredictable.
Yeah. And so and even the white ones I get camping go South Africa.
Yes.
So Jwaneng is where they go shaba. So no, but why don't we then build we'll kill several birds with one stone. We take a plot, we build 4 blocks, multi-stories, 4 ways, parking underneath with some bit for disabled people, a restaurant, so that, you know, mine workers, baberakadi shifts, they come here each mine worker has a self-contained, on en suite bedroom, but shares an open area with 3 others. But if they don't want to cook, they can always go downstairs by go restaurant. Or we can have people provider with meals. Meals in the bedrooms. That was the concept. But having not done our homework, no, we didn't do our homework. We did not realize that we have 2 Botswana. That there's an urban Botswana where the rates are decent. You can, you go and get a loan, about 10%. When you take the same project, even though it is literally in Johnny, but no. Rebatla 40%, rebatla 50%. We went through all these banks, but 40% they okay here.
Is it not the lack of vision that you're talking about?
It is. But Lerona, we hadn't done our homework, because if we had done our homework, rather than assume that 10% applies across board, we should initially have raised a lot of money in advance. So we did not manage expectations.
So what countermeasures can you put in place? Can you not talk to a potential funder and tell them what you would like? Maybe somebody is watching. We would like somebody who appreciates that vision, not just for, we bought a plot that was supposed to be experimental, but we would like the partnership. I have pictures here of plots owned by extremely poor people, where you see a hovel, a bit of mud. An old lady lives here with 9 kids. Those 9 kids, if they are girls, by the time they are 15, they already have babies. Because there is nothing in the home. And a lot of them, AIDS and babies. Rona will buy only 1 plot. After that, we must partner with all the poor homeowners so that a home for the family, and then you build so that there is income coming in. We pay off the bank. The idea pay the bank and let the bank get off our shoulders. And then will have paid an architect, engineer, etc., etc. And the developer, yeah.
Exactly. 10, 15 years after the fact, but in those 15 years, we make sure that the next generation, those members of the family, never have to take visa. They go to the best schools that money can buy. The banks come in and help us, or even some of our members, with financial literacy, so that when the income will continue to increase. And so they need to know how to manage finances.
Does the issue of the limited life of the mine have any play in this? We're always told what diamonds will end in 20 years, 30 years?
Yeah, 20 years is too, it's 2 lifetimes. You have 2-3 generations of people.
It depends who you're talking to. Some say 50 years, some say 20.
Yeah, but put it this way. If Joanne mine were to close tomorrow, will there be a Gaborone? Where does the money that circulates here come from? It's Joanne.
Yes.
Yeah. So if that mine deteriorated to a point where it will not generate money, so will Gaborone. So does it matter whether you build a double story in Gaborone or in Italy? We will all suffer.
It shouldn't matter, because for at least 10 or 15 years you'll be making money.
Exactly. Exactly. And so if but you'll have the money already to invest in other long term. The agricultural sector there will need but obviously they can't just eat it all.
Yes.
They have to be able to invest in other exciting things. They have to go into international trade. The sky should be the limit. There's a whole continent.
This is a part of the show, Mema Selolwane, where you can ask me a question. What have you got in mind?
Can I give you a challenge?
Yes.
Yeah. Mogobe, you know, being a researcher and a policy analyst and what have you, I took most of the nugget that you have discussed with people, and that's what inspired me. Hori, I would like, through you, and particularly you, with me there, the great competency to do it. I think we have an opportunity, and I would, you know, you don't have to answer me now.
Yes.
But think about it. I am worried, this dependency syndrome ya Botswana. Eba tlogela ba nna le lehuhanyana mo Batswaneng ba bangwe who are not so-called Basike. We have a whole Indian community here. The reason ba succeed is because ba thusanya. I would like whether motho o tswa ko kae kana o tswa ko kae, go nna le the capacity to build across those racial borders. To say now, the very thing, if you recall, in the run-up to independence, that part of the reason that you had a BDP coming up, you had a People's Party coming up as national parties, is the recognition that when you reach out and hold hands across racial divides, and all of you are not necessarily strong, you become stronger. When are we going to build? When you have successfully done that, you have Indian friends who've mentored you and you are mentoring others. You have white friends who are mentoring you. And my son also, you know, they are Indian gentlemen.
Partners, yeah.
By Longori, you know, I take them very much as my own sons, and they treat me as their mom. I would like to see more synergy, because we have a lot to learn from communities whose cultures have built that thing, team. Let's work as a team, not against one another. Let's not pull others down.
Yeah. You're not even supposed to use that word.
Yes. Now I would like to see a little bit more reaching out to say we have a national problem. That problem era Botswana ba eleng gore cannot make it. Will make it ka go utswela ba bana. Ba tla utswela bo mangane. So if we want safe homes, let's reach out.
I embrace the challenge, and I accept the challenge, because it's something that I dedicated my life to, in terms of continually reaching out to learn from across racial divides, and also having input from across. We're trying to do something similar to that through Angel Network Botswana, where I've partnered with very, very successful Indian business men and women, and we're starting to have an impact. So from what you are saying, we need to do more, and we need to carry on the track we are in.
And
through
we need
this
to
platform,
say in 10 years, Tota, we shouldn't be talking.
Yeah.
We should build wealth together.
Absolutely. So I accept the challenge. Now look at that camera, Selolwane, and just say, you know, as you bid farewell to that listener, leave them with words of encouragement and inspiration.
Batswana betu, whether ke Batswana ba mmalanyana o moswana kana Batswana nyana ba bantshonyana kana, we have a nation to build. We must be the ones building the Botswana that we want. We shouldn't be fighting with one another, and we should not be expecting governments always to be the ones rescuing us. A re tshwaraganeng bagaetso, nna ke na le tumelo ya gore re ka hedisa lehuma, ra hokotsa tshenyegelo e ke e bonang e ntsintsi in terms of how government spend their money. Go diragala jalo because as ordinary citizens, we have failed our people. We need to wake up. We need to have a private sector that has a passion for ensuring that we end kumanego, not with handouts, but with reaching out to other Botswana and encouraging them that it takes a team to build a nation.
Thank you very much. Let me ask you to leave your contact details, emails, social media presence, so that if people want to carry on with this discussion or to take you up on some of the challenges that you put, they can contact you.
Okay. So my email address, and I do check my email, is Onalenna, DOO, @gmail.com. My cell phone number is 7506 7286. Ke montolo go araba phone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
You've been a
Thank
great
you
guest.
so much.
Thank you so much indeed.
You're right.